a different section. Okay, today is guest speaker section, and our speaker is here already. I'll introduce him later. Okay. And before we start today's section, I would like to use the some time to talk about your next assignment. Okay. This is so-called promotion plan for tourist attraction. Okay, that's related to your final project. Okay, so before you make your final presentation, you have to write a plan, a promotion plan. All right. So first of all, you have to decide which attraction in time and city that you would like to focus in your presentation. Okay. So which means that which attraction that you would like to promote to your foreign friends in your final presentation. Okay, so decide which attraction in time and city you would like to promote, and then the next step is to search for background information of that attraction. So you have to browse the internet, or you go to that attraction, go to that spot to take photos, to watch, to observe, okay, to feel something in that place. All right. Anyway, collect information on that attraction. And if possible or necessary, implement the on-site investigation or claims survey. Okay, if you need to do some survey with the tourist or with the some kind of shop owner in that areas, or you could talk to me on that if you plan to make a survey. Okay, but go to that place in person is a must, meaning that you have to write a report. That's your next assignment. After you go visit that site, okay, on-site investigation. And then you have to think of a slogan in your presentation. Okay? When you promote that attraction, you have a slogan. You need to have a slogan. And we'll talk about this slogan later. But not later. Well, talk to me. Make an appointment with me. I'll let you know further, okay, in our meeting. And then write out this plan. So in this plan, the format of this plan includes introduction, background information, the unique slogan, and conclusion. Okay. And in introduction parts, you have to include a brief statements or descriptions of this overall of this report. Okay. And specify your motivation of choosing the attraction. Why do you want to focus on that spot? Why do you want to talk about this place? Or why do you want to promote that place? Okay? And explain the content of the report, kind of preview. Like in your presentation, it's kind of preview slides. Tell the audience in your report, you include each part. Okay? And in background information, you have to include the history or any important past of the attraction, any important information, the history, okay? And then any records, if these attractions have ever earned before, okay? Any records, all right? And the result of the survey you conducted on that attraction, if you do. Okay? And the specific features, the features of that attraction. Features which is differentiate the attraction from others, okay? The slogan, all right? When you think of this slogan, you have to try to avoid common buzzwords like explore, discover, center of it all, okay? Something for everyone. Think of successful slogans, some unique ones. Okay? I couldn't give you more examples right at the moment, but just make an appointment with me. We'll talk a bit further on this. Such as, I provide 3 examples here. Las Vegas, what happens here, stays here. Okay, that's a slogan of that city. New York, the city that never sleeps. Okay. All right. Conclusion. After that, you have to conclude your report. So you have to brief provide a brief statement to kind of close the plan. After you submit this plan, we're going to work on the implementation based on this plan. Okay? And this plan, I believe, that will be due 4 weeks later. 4 weeks later, so you have the whole month to work on this plan. And we, in this month, we have a serious talk on how to make key message, how to build key message, okay, how to tell a story. All right. So working with Nick, that will probably be a help for you to compose this plan as well. Okay. And today I'm very glad to invite one of my good friends, Nick Howard. Okay, he works in the company is now in Kaohsiung and also in Taipei.
Yeah.
Both. Yeah. So he needs to travel from north to south or south to north. So he's kind of busy person. But we've been working together on this for 2 semesters, for the past 2 semesters. And the students, your fellow students who was taking these courses before, love those sections very much. That's why I keep inviting him, come to CJCU and provide those helps to you. Okay, so I think you could introduce yourself a little bit further on the in between. Yeah, because I'm afraid to couldn't really make it clear to students.
That's okay. What we do is very complicated. I actually have 2 companies. One company in Kaohsiung called In Between does a lot of things like cross-cultural training or events for personal development or professional development. So before we would do things like speech and presentation training. We would also do things like swing dance classes or French baking classes. What we wanted to do was create an opportunity for people who want to do something very different with their lives to come to our space and try something new. My other company, which is mostly in Taipei, focuses on professionally training companies and branding and presentation. So startups or larger companies who want to go to Europe or America to build their brand or build their market, my company will go and train them on how to speak or how to talk about that. So we do a lot of things.
Yeah, that's why I say it's difficult for me to make it clear to you. Okay, so now let's welcome Nick Howard. Okay, and if you have any questions you would like to talk to him after the talk, you're welcome to do so. All right.
All right. So usually I don't introduce myself. What I do is I give you an opportunity to ask any question you want to ask. So instead of me telling you who I am, what do you want to know? Does anyone have any question? I'm very nice. No one has ever died in any of my classes. Any question you want to ask? Because as soon as I stop talking, you must talk.
Where are you from?
I'm American. I'm from Oklahoma. So OKC Thunder for any NBA fans. That's from my hometown. Okay. Other questions? See, he's okay. Nothing bad happened to him when he asked a question. Anyone else? Questions or thoughts? Shy? Yes, sir.
What is your major brand?
Major brand
Yeah.
that my company has worked with? Most of the brands my company has worked with, maybe they're very specific, biotech or medical industry. So most of them do things like stethoscopes for doctors, implants, dental implants. We have people in my company have done training for larger companies, for like Samsung, Maserati, and a few banks. We'll go in and do trainings. But for the brands we have built are mostly Taiwanese, like specialties, especially biotech industry. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Like other many countries, like your company, the employees were from different countries, or just?
Yeah, the company itself is fairly small. There's 5 of us. I'm American. My other business partner is Taiwanese. One business partner is Taiwanese, but his background's very complicated. He actually went to junior high school and senior high school in Sweden, and then went to university in the US, and then he worked in the US and Taiwan. So even he's Taiwanese, most of his life he spent in Europe and America. So before we did a lot of cross-cultural trade. So we would work with people like our web designers from Slovakia, different people who used to work in our space were from England, America, all over the place. So we do a lot cross-culturally. Good. Any other questions? Actually very surprised. Usually the kind of questions people ask me are very basic. But you guys actually have in-depth questions. Good. Anything else? Yes?
So how long have you been here?
That's a scary question. I have been in Taiwan for 10 years. As of last month. Last month was 10 years.
So is there any difference, or you said you're to cross culture? So is there anything you need to get acquainted with when you stay in Taiwan?
A lot. Very different. Talk about that a bit, but it's also what makes English quite hard to learn. Is not the language rules, but it's the logic. So the logical way that Westerners, especially Americans, think about things as opposed to Taiwanese is very different. I'll give you an example. You guys haven't done business. Usually in Taiwan, when you do business, the very first thing you do when you meet someone is give your business card. Always. And the reason for this is because a lot of Asian thinking is that all the information I need to give you first. So it's also when you guys write in Chinese, it's usually like every detail, every piece of information you have to give. And at the very end, you tell the person what's your point, right? Your conclusion. So usually if you do businesses, you always give someone a business card. And the reason is because all the information you need to know about the person is there. The company name, their job title, maybe what their company does. Taiwanese companies love to put their VAT number and like sometimes the university and everything they went on to. Western logic is very different. Western logic is before you and I talk, or before you and I change information, like my phone number, my email, I need to find out what do you want. So same as when you guys write English paragraphs, right? They always say, what's your main point? Number 1. First paragraph, main point. Same as when we start a conversation, the very first thing I'm looking for is connection. What can you and I talk about? So, it's a little weird, but I maybe, with a Westerner, will have a 5 or 10 minute conversation. I don't even know their name. I know nothing about them. I'm just having a conversation, and I'm trying to find a connection. And when I have a connection, now I give you my information. I know what you want. I know what I can talk to you about. Now, here's my business card. So you run into a lot of cultural things like this, where it's like in Taiwan, relationship is number 1. If I'm going to do business, the very most important thing is we need to have a relationship. We need to have trust. For Westerners, number 1 most important thing is I can do something with you. You can do something with me. If I don't know exactly what we can do together, We don't need to talk. So after 5 minutes, I don't understand you. It's like, oh, it was nice to meet you. Goodbye. Maybe I don't know your name. Because it's about that, what can we do together? But for Taiwanese, or a lot of Asian companies, what can we, how can we build a relationship? If I can trust you, maybe I know somebody else who can work with you. But first, relationship. So a lot of these things tend to create very big differences in business. Okay. Other questions? After, you guys can ask me any other questions. But today, because you guys have a project about, introducing part of Tainanxing, right? What I want to talk about is when companies build brands, or even cities or countries build a brand, how do they do that? What's the thinking behind it? Again, most marketing material, branding material you'll read on the internet or is in your textbooks, this is actually very American. Now, to be honest, in Taiwan and China, it doesn't mean it's the best way to do it. But if you're trying to do an international brand, reach a bigger audience, this is usually how people think. Okay? I'll ask you a very simple question. It's not a test. There's no wrong answer. I just want your idea. That's it. What do you think is the purpose of branding? Why do companies like Apple, Nike, Samsung throw millions of dollars, millions and billions of US dollars in branding? For what? What's the point?
Simple and clean mission.
Okay, so a simple and clean, sorry, what's the
Mission.
mission. All right, so you know very easily what is this company about, right? Okay. What else? Yeah.
Recognition.
Recognition, right? All right, if I draw a check mark on a board, 99% of people will go, Nike. If I say something like, what is McDonald's slogan? Yeah, I'm loving it, right? Everyone knows this, recognition. Good. What else? What else do companies brand? They just like spending money. Too much money. Any other ideas? I'm going to give you a very technical definition. Don't need to remember this. I will not ask you over it. Very technical definition. A brand is a company's way of occupying a unique space in your mind and leveraging your past experiences to control future purchasing habits. A very technical, boring definition. Only two things you need to remember. Mind control. Okay. Brands are trying to control your mind. The way you think, the way you act, the way you buy. Okay. Let's talk about how powerful could this be. Again, one of the most difficult parts about learning a language, either way, you guys learning English, me learning Chinese, is not grammar and vocabulary. It's cultural things. Something you will never learn in a classroom. Give me an example. What is this? Not a trick question. You use them every day. What is that?
Tissue.
Tissue. Okay. If you go to America to buy tissue, and you go to the store clerk and you say, hey, I'm looking for tissue, or hey, can you pass me tissue? They're going to know for a fact you are not American. They'll be like, this guy's not from here. Why? All right. Because one of the oldest and most successful companies to make tissue is Kleenex. So, most people call tissue Kleenex. Now, in Taiwan, you don't buy it because it's a little expensive compared to other ones. But in the US, this is the most popular, oldest brand. So, Doesn't matter. There's 20 brands of tissue. Most people will go, I want Kleenex. And the store clerk will be like, come here. See, you can choose all the Kleenex. It's because the brand has become the product. Okay. Another one. What's this? Same. Cotton swab. But if you go to buy a cotton swab, a lot of them will look at you funny. The only person who uses cotton swab is a doctor. Because doctors are like much bigger and more serious. So if you say cotton swab, then they think very serious, doctor. But Q-tip. Q-tip again, is one of the oldest and most successful companies. So if you go to the store, don't ask for cotton swab, you ask for Q-tip. Final one. Everyone knows what this is, right? Coke. If you go to a restaurant, especially where I'm from, like middle part of the US or western part of the US, and say, I want a Coke. They'll probably look at you and go, what kind? You want Pepsi, Sprite, 7-Up, orange soda? Okay. Why? Because Coke is not Coca-Cola. Coke is just every soft drink. Coke has become such a strong brand that almost every soft drink is now called Coke. Right? So most people, so if you want Coca-Cola, you must say Coca-Cola to get the actual drink. Right. Coke has another very, very successful campaign. The way most people see Santa Claus and Christmas decoration comes from them. Santa Claus's traditional outfit is not red. It's actually white and green. But Coca-Cola in the I think they started in the 1920s, started pushing what we think Santa Claus looks like now so much that now Christmas decoration are based on their idea. Not based on old traditional European story ideas. It's based on Coca-Cola's idea. Okay? And even now, most Christmas commercials you will see, Coca-Cola always uses this style. And they're responsible. This is how strong the brand can be. Okay? There's two reasons for this. And two successful pieces of branding. If everything else you don't remember, here's the two things I want you to think of. When you're promoting your idea, there's two things you need to consider. One is the perception someone has. The other is the impression you make. There are technical definitions about perception and impression. The one thing I want you to remember is that the difference is in time. Perception is something that takes a very long time to create, and it also takes a very long time to break. And I'll give you an example of this very soon. Impressions are very short term. Like we say, first impression. You see something, you immediately think something. This can be good, this can be bad. But impressions can come and go very fast. Perception is very hard to change. It's also very hard to create. So, when you're thinking about what to promote, either yourself or when you're doing your city project, you need to consider, what do people know? Let's do a little activity with perception. Alright, get into a group of 13. Like, put about 3 or 4 people together. So just whoever is around you, talk to around 3 people. Okay. And in your group, I want you to just write down very quickly a few ideas. So if I tell you something, it was made in Japan. Don't care about what product. I just tell you it's made in Japan. what is the first idea that comes to your head? I don't want no paragraph. If it's made in Japan, I don't care about that. Just a few words, like made in Japan, maybe quality. A lot of people care about Japanese quality, right? So just quality. If you can't think of a word, what's a company? Or what's a famous thing from Japan? Okay? And I want you and your partner just go through the list. There's 8 countries here. For each country, maybe 3 or 4 ideas. Again, just one word, one phrase. Quickly write down. Talk about it. If I said made in Japan, made in Italy, what do you think? Write it down. I'll give you about 10 minutes. Move around, talk to people around you, be in a group. Take about 10 minutes, just, again, you don't have to think too in-depth, just I hear, made in Bach, write it down. One word. For every country, maybe 5.